How do you fuse opposing themes of ancient history, modern culture, spirituality, and science all in one? It's a pretty difficult ask, especially because each statement contradicts the other. Even AI image generator DALL-E has a difficult time combining these elements, though the result was interesting, to say the least. Now it's the same question, but not in a Baroque painting, instead in the construct of a rap video. You might think of Kendrick Lamar's God is Gangsta, Busta Rhymes' Master Fard Muhammad, even Kanye West's Diamonds from Sierra Leone. All of these are amazing examples in their own right, but after transitioning from mainstream rap to an underground sound, my friend Amarty and I unearthed some diamonds that deserve their own shine. Today we'll take a look at Old Earth, a dense EP by rappers Mike and Jadasea, with an accompanying avant-garde visual that challenges the viewer to take a look at history's past before making judgments of its future. This is Old Earth. This is Mike. Mike is a 24-year-old rapper born in Livingston, New Jersey, but has roots in London, the Bronx, and Brooklyn. He was noted as Earl Sweatshirt's favorite rapper at one point, name-dropped multiple times in Earl's LP some rap songs from The Mint,
I was in the kitchen with that nigga Mike,
to Nowhere to Go.
I be with Mike, man. Nowadays I be with Sage with 6.
But Mike isn't new. He's been dropping consistently high-quality projects since 2015, including classics like War in My Pen, Tears of Joy, Weight of the World, and most recently, Beware of the Monkey. Mike is the griot at the forefront of a wave of rappers and producers making loose, grainy, devotionally lyrical rap feel vital again. And let's not forget Jadasea, an MC from London who's both a longtime collaborator and friend of Mike. They featured on the same track numerous times, Regrets being one of my favorites, but also on Rosetta Stone, a track that reflects a similar inquisitive nature on life as the video we'll be analyzing today, Old Earth. Old Earth is an EP not available on streaming but for purchase on Bandcamp and spans 6 tracks titled Tracks A through F in alphabetical order. It was released on September 22, 2020 along with the music video directed by London-based creative agency Matter Research. I found Old Earth in the last few months during a deep dive of Mike's discography and I recognized one of the prominent symbols in the video. I thought my friend Amarty could help me identify it, which he was, and that led us on a scavenger hunt to dissect every single frame in the 11-minute video.
When Brandon first sent the video, I was fascinated by the kinetic, dense, and diverse layering of images. We contacted Matter Research to inquire about the footage, who pointed us to a user named t.v.c.o. t.v.c.o made a large portion of the visuals, and as you can see from his social media, his avant-garde art feels jarring and chaotic. Old Earth is no different. I studied math in college, so the research papers on fractals caught my eye in particular. But we wanted to know the story of every image and how they contribute to the video's overall narrative. Some were iconic graphics that we instantly recognized, like the game Mancala we grew up playing, while others required excavation from the internet's depths through reverse Google image search. Wanting to find the intention from the source, we also wistfully emailed, DM'd, and called until we could hear from many insightful experts, including some featured in Old Earth's vast media archive. Based on this research, we wanted to share the story and legacy of Old Earth as a musical and visual work. What the directors effectively do is paint a visual tapestry upon rappers Mike and Jadasea's musical backdrop, rapidly juxtaposing clips of art and science to illustrate how through deterministic chaos, Africa has laid the foundation for modern knowledge.
We'll start our analysis at the beginning. The album cover and first frame of the video are the same image, which is an X-ray effect on an actress from the play The Amen Corner. The Amen Corner tells the story of an African-American family born into poverty, with the characters considering whether religion can be used as an escape from life's toils. This consideration of religion is fitting in Old Earth's visual anthology and sets the tone with an example of how modern art is a preservation of the African experience. One of the most powerful displays of imagery occurs in the blink of an eye at about 1 minute into the video. I'm going to let it play and then jump into the analysis after.
Out the gate, getting out the maze, measured out the fame, all I know is...
In the very short clip, we see a visual progression of rope. First we see a clip of what looks to be a slave with a rope around his neck. Immediately after, the clip transitions into a basketball player shooting a hoop, the rope in this shot being the basketball net. Finally, the clip transitions to an eerie photo by artist Hank Willis Thomas of a basketball player dunking into a noose instead of the hoop. This visual progression of rope used in 3 different forms shows that even though contextually a lot has changed since slavery, there are still white owners in modern society who quote-unquote own the players and turn huge profits from the labor provided by black men. Another way the directors highlight culture through sport is during track E, where continuous video footage of double Dutch jump roping is shown. This is one of just a few times we see prolonged video footage as opposed to short clips or flashing images and text. Mike utters a lyric at the same time that a flip occurs, saying,
Flip another dollar, another day on the pavement.
which is a direct allusion to how a double Dutch jump roper is literally flipping on the pavement, but also a nod to how people were flipping dollars on the street. In terms of its structure, track E is the most sonically upbeat song of the EP, which makes it an intuitive fit as the double Dutch motion is able to keep pace with the jumping beat. Now compare it to the slower pacing of track B.
Defined by limits and lines. What's the time gets the best of rhymes.
By pairing the bouncy track with the double Dutch clips, the directors also give credit to the sport, which has foundational roots in African American culture. Shifting from sport to art, many clips from African films are seen throughout Old Earth, with the directors using black modern art to illustrate the preservation of the African experience. Prior to the next film, we see a shot of what looks to be Pope John Paul II visiting Africa. The shot looks very paternalistic and is followed by a cannibalistic art piece. Immediately after, we see a parallel clip of a black crowd from the Senegalese film Tuki Buki, but this time with no superior white figurehead, though you'll notice that this man's wave matches the Pope's almost exactly. This is JP. Amarty and I wanted to get an expert analysis on some of our interpretations, and JP came to mind. He has a degree in art and design from MIT, attended Princeton for theological seminary, and aside from academia, knows a lot about life. This is how he saw the clip.
But I think looking back on this now from 2022, many people would say, oh, it looks very paternalistic. It looks very like it's the Pope ascending from on high. He's coming down to the people. And again, that's colonialism. It's like white supremacy saying, come up to civilization.
These modern cultural commentaries in Old Earth build upon a foundation of traditional African customs, artifacts, and civilizations. The directors use many examples from all corners of Africa. For example, the directors create this image, which is a reinterpretation of a print from the fashion house Comme des Garçons. In the years 1989 to 1991, Comme des Garçons published 6 magazines to collect images that represented the brand's visual motifs. However, the director's reinterpretation is a composite of 2 images, the Mbaka Banja female circumcision ceremony and the Campion flower, both of which signify growth and tradition. As I mentioned, this is just one of many African cultural icons in the video. Let's take a tour of some of the others and see what they might mean for the stories the directors share. Another prominent artifact within the video is the boli, the image Brendan originally sent me that drove the inspiration for our project. Boli are zoomorphic creations from natural materials like mud and kola nuts, and are created as a literal and symbolic extraction of the Earth's life force. The boli joins other spiritual artifacts, including the Nkisi Kondi Congolese spirit warrior, the Luba Lukasa memory board from modern-day Democratic Republic of the Congo, and the temples of Duki Gel in Sudan, all of which reinforce the director's homage to African spiritual traditions and philosophies. And the directors don't just use artifacts from Africa. They build upon relics, ruins, and spiritual symbols from all over the world to emphasize how culture and knowledge are preserved and, in t.v.c.o's own words, the influence Africa had on these other cultures. A specific example that highlights this influence begins with the golden skull from the Mayan civilization that has inlaid jewel teeth, which was a common practice to demonstrate wealth. The directors visually relate this practice to modern pop culture and activism, with pictures of rapper Flavor Flav's signature gold grills and another photo by Hank Willis Thomas, who also photographed the basketball social commentary that Brendan discussed earlier. These images coincide with Mike's rapping of the following lyrics.
Since a child cage, try to fix my mouth to save. Picture now without the pain, bigger smile strain.
Also metaphorically referring to how these smiles symbolize freedom without the cage of oppression.
Old Earth juxtaposes spirituality with science, forcing us to reckon where knowledge comes from. By titling the EP Old Earth, the rappers allow for both spiritual and scientific interpretations. The title of Old Earth itself alludes to Old Earth theology, or the religious ideas behind how Earth came to be. In contrast to young Earth creationists who believe that Earth was created in 6 days, Old Earth creationists believe that the Earth is billions of years old. Another interpretation we had about Old Earth was in a more sociological sense. Old Earth could be referring to the primacy roots of culture, to which Africa is the inception. The oldest hominid skeleton, Lucy, was found in Ethiopia, and the origin of modern humans began in Africa, so old as in classic and foundational. Alkebulan, the original name for Africa given by its people, which translates roughly to Garden of Eden, represents the continent as a spiritual haven from which many cultures blossomed. The Garden of Eden is just one of many Christian images that appear throughout the video. At one point, we see 3 different types of crosses: the Christian cross, Ethiopian Habesha cross, and Egyptian Ankh, said to be the original cross. In addition to 3 crosses, we see 3 different examples of CT scans. Continuing with the theme of religion, Jesus reappears in this image of what appears to be the Mother Mary and Jesus as a child within a CT scan. It's a similar scan to the Egyptian mummy that appears in the start of the video, drawing parallels that uphold Africa as a source of ideas. The final CT scan we see occurs in the beginning and end of the video, and at first glance it's hard to tell what's actually being examined. This was a scene where we asked the directors personally what it signified, to which we received the response: CT scan is a bully, filled with a timestamp collage history of ritual and science. So while the bully is being scanned in the source video, the director has edited images of historical artifacts over it to signify its cultural significance. JP said the following:
Putting it through the scanner is like, let's deconstruct it. Let's see what's inside of it. Mary and Jesus and the bleeding statues. And yeah, see here, they're scanning looks like a mummy, right? The crossed arms looks like a mummy. So they're trying to look inside the body, the artifact, trying to get back to origins or sources or causes.
Hey, only focused on my gang, not this clouded gang.
So here we see a bunch of dice being thrown, but what does that actually mean? At the end of the clip, we get a hint when this image flashes across the screen, with a man throwing dice into a void. Further research on this image traces its origin to a Stephen Hawking article titled, "Does God Play Dice?", to which he claims that scientific determinism doesn't exist. And what is scientific determinism? Scientific determinism is a philosophical perspective that says that everything is bound by the laws of physics, contrasting the idea of free will. Hawking's research showed that when you study particles from black holes up close, the particles that come out are random. He concludes that one can calculate probabilities, but cannot make definite predictions, closing with, "God still has a few tricks up his sleeve," positing that maybe science doesn't have all the answers. A voice clip from the end of track A references this deterministic chaos, saying,
"Down, you're ascending upward or you're spiraling downwards. Let's look at that."
The inclusion of Hawking's article introduces a major theme within the director's work of ethnomathematics and fractals. They include numerous fractals throughout Old Earth to show how these self-similar patterns appear in African society and how thought spreads through deterministic chaos. When we take a closer look at the Ethiopian Habesha cross, we notice it's not only an icon of cultural and spiritual fusion, but of scientific ingenuity as well. Notice how the triangles form this recursive pattern that repeats on itself and is similar on all scales. Fractals are visual representations of deterministic chaos because they are formally defined based on 3 key attributes: self-similarity at all scales even when zooming in, a common ratio or dimension that defines the self-similarity, like how these lines split into thirds, and the idea that small initial differentiations can drastically affect the final outcome, like in this fractal, which is the origin of the term butterfly effect, as the image represents a butterfly and the concept that even actions as small as the beat of a butterfly's wing can cause a typhoon halfway around the world. At the heart of Old Earth's discourse on fractals is the work of Ron Eglash, a professor at the University of Michigan School of Information whose research focus is on ethnomathematics. Based on how featured his TED Talks, textbooks, and academic work are, we reached out and got the awesome opportunity to interview him. Here's what he had to say about Old Earth.
There's definitely a feel you get in that video that's decolonial or counter-primitive, right, against the colonial image of Africans as primitive, and in favor of this idea that there's a kind of knowledge underground. And I agree with you that phrase, Old Earth, hints at that.
One of Eglash's primary pieces of evidence for the origin of fractals in Africa is the structure of African villages. Many African villages were built in self-similar patterns for defense, superstition, and social and familial hierarchies. Beyond structures, Fractals appear everywhere in African culture, from traditional African hairstyles to pastimes like Mancala. In line with our thesis about ancient Africa's modern impact, deterministic chaos weaves through African culture historically and in practices that continue to today. Now, you might think the relationship between African ingenuity and modern technology is just a coincidence. However, according to Eglash's research, pioneers in this modern field actually directly referenced African cultural practices when forming the basis of this knowledge. This is Bamana sand divination, a practice in which African fortune tellers connect with the earth in order to predict someone's life outcome. How did this get from Africa to the Western world? Arabic conquerors brought documentation of this spiritual practice to Europe and made their own version called geomancy. Gottfried Leibniz, the father of modern algebra, drew upon geomancy to design binary code, which established an intuitive way to define the true-false logic that today's computers operate on. Through this, we can see how ancient African rituals directly led to arguably the most important technology of our time. Like fractals, knowledge disseminates from a set of seed points, be it the beat of a butterfly's wing or a stroke in the earth. So much of what surrounds culture today, whether it be art, science, or religion, stems from ancient culture and knowledge that is worth preserving. Beyond the spread of knowledge, both the directors and rappers prompt us to consider what knowledge we owe to ancient African civilizations and modern manifestations of their traditions. The visual anthology matches the intention of the music to represent heritage, cultural identity, and mortality. Both Mike and Jadasea recognize the chaos of finding oneself and operating as an individual on this earth. So, in considering what we know, who we owe that to, and how we live, we are encouraged to take a step back and heed Jadasea's advice as he finishes the EP.
Now take a look where we are.
And then he is
Okay, that wraps up our analysis of Old Earth. Thanks for sticking to the end if you made it. I want to thank Mike and Jadasea for the EP, as well as Directors Matter Research and t.v.c.o for directing it and providing some analysis for us when we were doing this video.
We'd also like to thank Ron Eglash and J.P. Kang for their academic expertise and general words of wisdom throughout the project. We left a couple links to their research and general work, as well as links to the Bandcamp files so you can help support the artists.
Yep. And if you like this style of video, this is our first time for both of us doing it. Let us know in the comments any feedback you have, and we'd love to keep making these style of videos in the future. So we made it to the end. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next one.